Okay, you guys, I'm excited about this episode. It's a very tactical, practical episode, and we are getting down to the nitty-gritty of how to travel with children without relying on screens. This is something we have done for years now. We actually did it before we technically became screen-free or started to embrace a more screen-free lifestyle. And so our kids don't know anything different. We don't know anything different, and we're going to share some of our tips and tricks with you guys. So I hope it's helpful. If you enjoy this episode, share it with a friend, give it a thumbs up. If you think about how you are even listening to this podcast right now, it's probably because someone you know and loved told you about it. And so, think who could you text now that we're a family podcast episode to? That is how this podcast grows. And so we are so thankful for you guys as listeners, spreading the word and increasing the community here at Now That We're a Family.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Well, this is kind of a timely episode because we are right smack dab in the midst of a busy travel season for us. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of families as spring is here. And then obviously summer is going to be rolling around. And that tends to be the time where people are hopping in the car and going to family reunions, weddings, all sorts of events.
Yeah, for this episode, I actually brought along a few props. I know that this is audio and video, so don't worry. If you're just listening to the audio episode, you're going to miss out on nothing. And you can see in the description anything that I have mentioned or anything that we mentioned. But do you just want to dive right in?
Sure. I love that you've got a couple pages full of notes. That is
some of the episodes we do have no notes, and some episodes have a lot of notes.
Yeah. Well, I will just say before you dive in, I think that I love the road trip experience that we've had thus far with our children. Sure, there's been a handful where, not even a handful, but, a few here and there that a kid's gotten sick on, you throw up in the car, or that's never fun, right? Or maybe even, I think there's been a couple where we've had a baby that was teething or was extremely uncomfortable in their car seat and they cried a lot. But I feel like I can count those negative experiences on one hand. But the bulk of our road trips and of our traveling, it's definitely been positive and a great experience.
Yeah, we've done mainly road trips. You guys know that we live about 6.5 hours from both of our families. And so that's primarily what we do. We also have family in Southern California, so we don't do that as often. I think we've only done that once as an entire family, but we've done that with various, 1, 2, or 3 kids before, and that's, 20 plus hours.
Yeah, I mean, we're up here in North Idaho, so Southern California all of a sudden became a long way away.
Very south.
Yeah.
And then we have flown across the country with the kids. And we're actually getting ready to do that in 2 days. And so that's why we're thinking about this right now. And yeah, so we'll just tell you what we do. Like you said, we do have one child that tends to get car sick and vomit in the car. Honestly, though, I'm just,
whoa,
just zoning out. Okay, so let's just stick to the notes for tonight, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. So I know we're talking about screen-free traveling. We specifically had this request in our question box. How do you keep your kids entertained while you travel? And like we mentioned in that episode, we like to change maybe that word entertainment and replace it with engage. Like, how are we going to engage our children while we travel? Because they will be just as happy and content, if not more so, if they are engaged versus just being entertained. But before we dive into those specific screen-free activities, I just want to say something that I learned from my mom, and that is to get dressed when you travel somewhere. And this isn't just if you're going to an airport, even if you're going to sit in your car all day long. Growing up, I always used to think, I want to wear my comfiest, frumpiest clothes, and who cares if I haven't washed my hair in, a week and a half. And I'm in the car. But your attitude translates to your children, and every time you look in the mirror, you feel lame, and you treat your kids lame, and you don't expect a lot from them. And so something that's been helpful for me is when it goes to getting dressed on a road trip, I have a little system for it.
Okay.
You're dying to know.
I actually am, yeah.
But a couple of those things are, one, I like to wear like what I'm wearing right now, like a jumpsuit. It's really comfortable. It's really cozy. You can get one with a skirt if you wanted. Or wear a sweatsuit. So it's like the same color, like all black, all white. You wear white tennis shoes, like some gold earrings, and it looks like you tried. And you didn't. And you're just as cozy as if you were like in yoga pants and a giant sweatshirt.
Well, you tried in the sense that you thought about it. So that's good.
Yeah. But it's like the same thing every time. Like I'm not trying to like squeeze into jeans or like put a whole outfit together, you know?
Sure.
It's just like one thing, just wear one color, white tennis shoes.
Well, I didn't even realize that your outfit was one of the props. That's pretty fun. You put that on.
I wasn't planning on that.
Example.
But it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's something. And then something else is that Elisha and I have talked a lot about, but especially if you're like going on an airplane, is to dress your children and do their hair.
Yeah, I agree with that for so many reasons. I don't know. I feel like oftentimes we overthink why people have good customer service or bad customer service, or why TSA agents are friendly or they're not friendly. And you usually get to have a huge say on how you're treated by customer service people or by, TSA personnel or people that are at the Delta, desk. Like you get to go look them in the eye, be gracious, not be demanding. And that's going to, from my experience, 99% of the time set the precedent for how the interaction is going and is going to go. And just dressing your children, teaching them to look, again, the people in security, have them look them in the eye, have them look the flight attendants in the eye, is going to make it a better experience for everyone. And the sooner you can get on the good side of, like I said, the flight attendants or anybody that you're engaged with throughout the airport experience or a travel experience, the better it goes for everyone. And like you can say it's vain, you can say it's superficial, but when kids have their hairs combed, when every single one of their hairs are combed and they're matching, we just get treated better.
Yeah, we get treated very, very well, and people go out of their way for you, and they're like, what a sweet family. And they engage the kids. And so when everyone's interactions towards you are positive, it feeds this positive loop where the kids are more positive and they're more gracious and you want to be more gracious. And it's just like, you just get momentum on your side, and it's the most simple thing. But if your kid looks like a blob that just rolled out of bed, you're a lot more likely to just try to pacify the blob and like give them whatever they need to shut them up and give them a screen, give them food, give them whatever, because, you aren't going to, it's a lot easier to not treat someone very well when they don't look very well. And that's a lame thing, but it's also a human trait. And so we can use that to our advantage. Well,
then your kid's obviously not going to be in their best mood or on their best behavior. And then you're not going to be treated very well from anybody around you, because they're going to look at your child and they're going, again, this is just, you can say it's right or wrong or whatever. I just think it is. People will look and they'll make a judgment, and they're going to, they will see if you took effort to prepare your child, and they're going to respect that more than if it looked like you didn't put forth any effort. Yeah. And that, again, I know that that's not like a popular thing, I think, for people to consider, because it's like, of course we don't know. There's plenty of terrible parents that know how to comb their kids' hair and put on a nice, dress on their daughter, and they treat their daughter terribly, behind closed doors. And so it's not like, that always means they're a good parent, of course. But it's just a basic thing that does usually earn more respect and care and customer service from people that are around you.
Yeah, so that's just like a really simple thing, but it goes a really long ways, I feel like. We like to use little slip-on shoes if you're in the airport. That's obvious. And aside from that, when our kiddos are in the airport, we have them all matching. Elisha touched on that, but it's just easier to keep track of them. And so that eliminates stress. If we're in the car, I've started doing this the last year and it's worked out really well because especially if we're showing up at grandparents' house and we haven't seen them for a long time or something, I hate getting out of the car with like peanut butter and jelly like smeared down the whole front of a child's t-shirt, but you also don't want to be the stressed out mom who's like, do not get anything on your t-shirt, you know? So we just started throwing one t-shirt per child, 3 extra t-shirts and stuffing them in the back seat of the car. It hardly takes up any room. And then right before we get there, I have the kids change their t-shirts. So it's like same shoes, same hair, everything, but they just put on a fresh t-shirt and it's really changed the game and my confidence when we show up somewhere and I'm able to be totally chill during the road trip.
Yeah, because that I feel like that's inevitable. It's really hard to feel like you're 100% after you've been in the car for 7 hours or any time like over 2 hours. I feel like you start to get that road grime on you. You know, you kind of start to smell. You're like, what's going on here? Your hygiene's not quite as fresh as you'd like it to be. And that's, multiplied by 10 with the children, right? You can't expect them to, again, keep their hair done or have their clothes not be stained with any snacks you're handing back. And so to have a plan ahead of time and we do this all the time. We've got like the same place we pull over on the road when we're going to Katie's family's house or when we're going to my family's house. That's just, like a mile from our destination. We pull over there, we do the hair, we get clean shirts on, we freshen up. I'll probably put some deodorant on, put some gum in your mouth. Because the fact is, you haven't seen your family a lot of times for a while, and you just want to be carefree. You don't want to be insecure about your breath. And this isn't us thinking that our family's going to love us less or not love their grandchildren. We just want the overall experience to be a lot more carefree. And for me, I'm a lot more carefree when the body odor is taken care of and when the bad breath isn't a concern. And I feel like I was able to get whatever, my hat hair taken care of.
Yeah, so these don't have to be really big things, I guess. They're little 3-minute differences that have made a big difference for us. So obviously it doesn't have to be the same way, but this is what I'm sharing. Okay, so then let's go into snacks real quick.
Go for it.
Okay, so with snacks, I think it's really important to not snack on anything that is going to increase hyperactivity if you are wanting to not pacify with screens. You don't want a lot of, hyperactivity, right? In the car, in confined spaces. And yet, juice or a lot of prepackaged snacks, those things spike our kids' blood sugar. They spike their hyperactivity. And then we're trying to calm them down with a screen or we're trying to calm them down with something. Like we're surprised when their attention spans are shot and they don't want to do anything for longer than 5 minutes. And so again, super, super basic, but this is something that I think matters. Like I think all the little things matter when it comes to road tripping. And we aren't like crazy about this, but these are just our go-to snacks. I wrote them down. A veggie bag. So this is something my mom always made and I loved it growing up. She just like peel carrots, chop them in there, put like spears, carrot spears, celery spears, bell pepper spears, and chop up cucumber. And then you put it all in a Ziploc bag or reusable bag and put a little bit of water on the bottom. And they're so crunchy and they're so delicious. And it's a great palate cleanser for snack food.
Yes.
Like sometimes you just want something fresh after you've been in the car all day.
No doubt.
And I just love the snacks, the veggie bag.
Oh, yeah. There is nothing, I shouldn't say there's nothing worse because I think there are things worse than what I'm about to say. But something that I don't enjoy is that bloated feeling of feeling over-snacked, right? And that's oftentimes happens on road trips because you don't want to stop at a restaurant or you don't want to go through a fast food drive-through. And so you're just filling yourself with crackers and with cheese sticks and whatever else, fruit snacks. And you get this bloated snack feeling. And I do feel like fresh produce, fresh veggies, or some fruits can be kind of a reset to that heavy, bloated, but not satiated feeling of being over-snacked.
Yeah. So some things that we do, we don't do fruit snacks. Elisha mentioned that. I just want to make sure, that's on the hyperactivity list.
Well, we did growing up. That was, I don't know how
those... was a lot less hyper probably than my family. We were all a little hyper without much help.
Yeah. I don't know how fruit snacks go under the radar, as much as they do.
It's like, they're like the new gummy bear, but everyone thinks they're kind of healthy because they're fruit snack.
Yeah.
Like you feel better about eating them by the pack.
Exactly. You just pound those things. But if you were doing that with, Skittles or gummy bears, you'd feel terrible about yourself.
So Mandarin oranges, apples, those are other great fresh things. Cheese sticks, Elisha mentioned, crackers, Chomp's beef sticks. Just like make sure there's lots of protein in there. Yes. For treats, sometimes it is fun to have a treat. We do chewable vitamins. So they have their chewable C's, they have their Vita Squares, their Vita Guards. We hand those out like every few hours, do a round of vitamins. It's fantastic. And in our house, that's what the kids equate to candy, or their chewable vitamins. And, bagel and cream cheese sandwiches. I get that's a little more on the sugar side with the whole bagel thing, unless you're home making them. But they stay so good in the car. Like, they don't get soggy like a turkey sandwich will. You don't have to refrigerate them. So, I don't know. Sometimes we like to use those on longer trips. And then, Elisha, you know what my Achilles heel is when it comes to candy that I don't count as candy?
Oh, wait. Oh, gum?
Yeah.
Gum. Yes.
So gum is something that my mom used as this, like, it was the pinnacle treat in our house. And what's awesome about it is a candy, but you get so much bang for your buck because it's not just gone in a few minutes.
Nope.
You chew it and you chew it and you chew it.
Yes.
So if we're 30 minutes out from a place and everyone's melting down, you need a morale boost, the gum comes out. We like to save that till the end.
No doubt. Yeah, it is the final countdown. It's like, okay, this is the last 45 minutes, this is the last hour, it's the last push, and that keeps the kids engaged. And gum is a great thing because of how long it lasts. That's what we decided to stock all of our like survival food buckets with. Because like you think about it, you've got rice, you eat that and you swallow it so quickly. If you fill that thing full of gum, you're going to be chewing on each stick for what? Like you can chew on that for days per stick.
Not a bad idea.
I feel like you people don't consider gum to be a good survival food, but I don't know. This stuff lasts for days.
I think it's probably like celery or something. Like you'll starve while eating it because there's no nutrient value.
I know. It's just a funny thought, though.
It is. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So now getting into things that we actually do, the reasons you're actually listening to this episode. First are story tapes or books on tape.
Yeah. Again, this is a continued love that we've created, I think, in our home. Really, Katie's done a great job of creating this love for stories. You do it at the breakfast table. You do it really at every meal that I'm not at, actually. And then it continues on into the car, but there is something that's a little different. Some Focus on the Family, does such a great job with their dramatized productions they've got the dramatized Narnias. We listened to Adventures in Odyssey growing up. We haven't yet done that in our family. I don't know if we're going to do that. We haven't talked about that really. But it, in my mind, it's like high production, high quality. I know Lamplighter has some great stories that we've done as well. Some great productions. And that is like a true treat to our children. After, reading Narnia around the table, they get to hear it with music and with professional voice actors, with sound effects. It like blows their minds. And so having things like that queued up for road trips makes it's special. It's like it's exclusive to long road trips. And so they really savor it, I think, all the more.
Yeah, Elisha mentioned Narnia. He introduced me to those and our kids to those. And then growing up, we always did your story hour. We have some of your story hours. They can be pretty feminist, which is funny. Like listening back, it's like the woman's definitely always right and the guy's always a doofus. Well, often. And so we kind of go back and forth on how much we want to listen to those.
Yeah, and even is it Aunt Sue and
Aunt Carol and Uncle Dan?
Oh, Uncle Dan.
She's kind of patronizing Uncle Dan.
Exactly. Yeah, but
yeah. So what's funny is our kids pick up on it, and that's when Elisha and I are like, "Oh, well, I don't know." Anyways, but your story hour has some great history.
Yeah.
Dramatizations. Carry On, Mr. Bowditch was a read aloud book that we loved growing up. Also, E.B. White has great read aloud books. So again, this is someone just reading Trumpet of the Swan or Stuart Little, which is honestly a super weird book, or Charlotte's Web. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find books on tape these days that are on CD. And you guys know we don't have iPhones. So if you are still in the land of the living, then maybe you can find books on tape on your iPhone. I bet
I'm sure you can find
totally
a ton.
possible.
Yeah.
But we're still, we've got the, what do you call those things? You have all the CDs slipped in the...
Like a book or like the sleeves or a case. Yeah,
a
CD
case
case.
of CDs. Robin Hood by Howard Pyle was another one I was able to find on
that was
CD.
great. That one's straight. That one's like, I don't know.
Thick
Straight,
old English.
no chaser. Yeah, it's got the old English, no sound effects. It's old recording quality, but the kids got into it.
Yeah, and Elisha and I got into it. Black Beauty is a great one. And obviously the Little House books, we were able to find those on CD, as well as Story of the World. I think I mentioned this before. We might have mentioned this before, but it's a great history. It's kind of like a telling of history. Mm-hmm. You can get Story of the World by Susan Wise Bauer in book form, and you can read it to your kids, or you can get the discs. Mm-hmm. And we really enjoyed those CDs in our car. So we always have story tapes or books on tape stocked in the car. Mm-hmm. Something else we have are just music CDs in the car. One of our favorites, our kids' favorite, is definitely the Now That I'm a Father album. Mm. Did you guys know that Elisha put out a children's album years ago?
You can't buy the CD anymore. So if you have one of those, that's collector's edition.
Collector's edition. Katie sitting down and addressing envelopes is not a good solution.
But that's still available, I think. I know it is. That's still available on Spotify and the streaming platforms.
Yeah. So you can burn your own CD maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Pirate it. So anyways, they love listening to that one. We have our classical conversation CDs. Mm-hmm. We all sing the timeline. Yeah. And just classical music on a CD.
Yes. And again, it's nice to have all these on, I guess, have them accessible, because right now we've got a baby, and I'm sure many of our listeners have babies that are in seasons of like being more cranky when they're in the car, right? Mm-hmm. Like when they're a newborn, usually they're pretty easy going. They're pretty chill. You feed them, you put them in, they go to sleep. And then when they're a little bit older, they're able to engage, they're able to color, or you can give them a snack.
They're able to eat. That's
they're able to eat. Exactly.
Success milestone.
But in between that time frame, there can be some long, cryy hours in the car. And so we like to be prepared if right now our youngest dozes off, or if he's cranky or whatever. We need like classical music, that type of like just kind of constant noise seems to be the best solution. And the kids get it too. They don't like it when the baby's crying either. And so they're on board with that strategy, and we really kind of bring them on board. And so they might want to keep a CD going or keep a story going, or they might want to start a story. But we're like, oh, sorry guys, baby just went to sleep. Let's put the music in and ride this out as long as we can. And so it's nice to be able to be flexible with like what you're going to when it comes to the media.
Yeah, what it goes to. Yeah, what you said. Okay. I don't have my script tonight. I'm lost. Okay, drawing. So drawing in the car sounds like a great idea. I'm just going to go into a bunch of random things now. But it can be a mess, and we found that out the hard way. You bring a Ziploc bag full of markers. They're all over the car. Crayons are all over the car. And then no one can find what they want when it comes to drawing. And so boogie boards have been great. Those little erasable sketch pads, because the pen and the board go together and there's only one pen. So those are great for toddlers. And then sketchbooks with a pencil. So sometimes the kids, they have their little backpacks when we road trip, and they get to put their own activities in there. And they just bring pencils and a sketchbook.
Yeah. Yeah. I love going low profile. Katie knows. I'm sure that many fathers can relate to opening up the back door of their family vehicle and seeing 786,000 pieces of anything, and so if that's markers or crayons or pieces of paper or books, I like to minimize that as much as possible. So the boogie boards have been a huge win for me, and I think for the whole family. The clutter, it causes stress for everybody. It really does. If you don't think it does, and maybe you should try it being decluttered, at some point in your life, and you'll probably feel yourself physiologically let down a bit and enjoy life. And so even though, yes, there is a level of the car's going to get messy on road trips. There's going to be some food that falls in between seats and whatnot. We don't like to set ourselves up for failure unnecessarily. And so that even comes down to, again, the snacks, like, fishy crackers, just probably, I don't know, maybe you guys love those in your car rides.
Elijah doesn't want to discriminate fully against the fishy cracker lovers.
They don't serve me very well. I will say this. It sounds like I'm, Mr. Grumps when it comes to road trips, but I am really inspired by how, or I should say challenged by how much my attitude gets to does determine the success of a road trip. And by success, I mean, what's the experience? Is it a positive experience or is it a negative experience? I think oftentimes, men, fathers, husbands, you just get mission minded and going from A to B is the only objective. Like everything in between is just friction and a roadblock or a hindrance to you accomplishing your mission. And I certainly, default to that mode, but it's crazy to see the demeanor in our children, in you, even in myself, when I choose to just enjoy the trip. So when somebody has to go to the bathroom, not be a grump and be like, hey, you got to hold it for another whatever. Just find a fun park to pull off at and take an extra 20 minutes. And it fuels the kids. It's like they travel that much better. And don't just let them run around. Get out and run around with them. Climb the trees with them, throw rocks in the creek with them, and then get back in the car. Again, I'm preaching to myself here because that's not my default mode. I don't think it's very many fathers' default mode, but it is funny. Not most of the time when I consider like what's being lost if I take an extra 30 minutes or 40 minutes to just enjoy the trip, it's nothing substantial at all. Like it's like, we just got to get there. We got to get there. And it's like, why? It's like, do we have a commitment at 5 p.m.? No. Like, so what's the difference of 5 p.m. and 5:40 p.m.? It's like, well, actually on the other end of this, there is no difference, but it can make the experience, can make the journey far more enjoyable for the kids. So anyways, that's not what we were talking about, but.
Well, what's funny is we love road trips. Yeah. And that's the funny thing is like, you aren't, as you're saying this, maybe you feel that way in your heart sometimes, but like you aren't a stressful person to road trip with. And Elisha and I love road trips because we jump in the car and we just talk while the kids hang out.
Yes. And I think, I'm glad that's been my experience too. I think I'll sometimes internally be thinking, oh man, we're going to hit Seattle traffic if we don't get going, or we're going to hit
that a lot more than I do.
Whatever, traffic at this hour. So we got to push it through rather than like, it's really not even the end of the world. If we do it, so like, okay, so we hit traffic, and we're postponed a couple hours. Like not letting that ruin the bathroom break. Just like we'll take the bathroom break. We can goof off. We can throw rocks. We can whatever, get a snack. So yeah.
Yeah, that said, we are very efficient travelers. Everyone goes potty at the same time, and we can make it for a very long time without needing a potty break, which is great. We also have a lot of boys, and we aren't afraid to pull off on the side of the road.
Oh, no.
if we need to. So anyways, some other things that have been great are sticker books. So I actually brought those. These brain game ones are great. You can have sticker by letters. These are ones that the 4-year-old does. And essentially, you can the stickers are all back here. It's all contained. I was telling you guys about this on a recent episode. And he loves finding the letters and matching up the shapes in the letters and filling out these sticker books. So someone actually, my friend Katie Delahook, she came by right after we'd had Lionel, they dropped off a meal, the Delahook family, and she included some of these for the kids to play with, which is such a thoughtful thing to do. And my kiddos just fell in love with them. So my 7-year-old got this older one. This is for 7 and up, and it's America's Top Gun fighter planes. So clearly it was going to be a fan with him, or he was going to be a fan of this. And this has bigger numbers and stuff like that. And then Lucy's got one, and I don't know. I just think it's a great idea because it's so low mess in the car and such high engagement, and that the kids don't get bored of it. Like something like a crossword puzzle, unless your child knows that crossword puzzles are fun, it's like, okay, yeah, this is high engagement, but it may or may not get them interested. And if they don't get interested, then it's zero engagement.
Yeah, there's a higher barrier of entry.
Yeah, exactly. Where these, they get interested right away and they stay interested for a very long time, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. And then the 2-year-old just has this little sticker book and he just puts his stickers wherever he wants. And the kids give him a hard time that the dump trucks are in the sky. But anyways, I will link those things down below because I was super stoked to find them. Another thing that's great on a plane, like those are great to bring on a plane because books take up a lot of room, stuff like that. I'm sure you guys know about these lace and trace things. Something that my mom did before lace and trace was cool was she would get a handkerchief, like a bandana, and tie knots in it, and then give it to the toddler to untie the knots.
Nice.
So, you can be creative. But that worked really well for one of my sisters. She just sit in her car seat and untie the knots and be so stoked when she got one undone.
Wow.
Some other things that the kids have enjoyed on road trips are knitting and obviously reading as soon as kids can read on their own. But all the way down, our kids, their favorite books to bring on road trips, like they have tons of picture books and they all choose to bring great illustrated classics. I don't know what it is, but it's so nice because it's a chapter book size and there's a picture on every page. You get maybe that's why they like it.
I'd say so.
They get 200 pictures in one book that's way smaller than their picture book. Yeah. And so the 2-year-old sits there with the great illustrated classics and the younger kids might bring 5 each in their little backpacks and flip through those for hours.
Those illustrations are pretty good. I can remember being a kid and just the covers and the pages. I like that. I think most of the illustrations in the book are black and white, right?
Yeah, they're all black and white illustrations.
Which I think as a kid, it almost allows more room for your imagination when it's black and white like that. So
probably. Yeah. So just kind of wrapping up with the whole concept of screen-free traveling, I guess, I would say it really matters that when you're starting off on something like this, or even if you want children to really enjoy it, is that screens are not an option. If screens remain an option for you or your child, that you will be fighting that and your willpower will eventually fatigue. When it's no option, you travel with no iPads in the car, there is no backup plan here. I've told Elisha this before, if we ever bought a car that had a video player in it, either we would never keep DVDs in there or I would take it out.
Yeah.
I would just have it removed because if it's an option, then you're going to fall back on it at some point. And it's not like we're terrified of that ever happening. If that serves your family, great. If our kids are on a plane and there are, movie screens on it, we aren't opposed to them watching a movie on the plane.
Right.
It's not like we're traumatized if that happens. It's honestly, I'd rather have them watching that than the screen next to them.
Oh yeah, the seat ahead of them. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's just carnage on airplane screens. So I would just rather them be engaged with their own thing in that scenario. But I just think it's really important. If it does matter to your family, then going cold turkey with this is going to be better because otherwise the kids will just be, everything's going to pale in comparison. When there's no other option, it's great.
Yeah, I agree. It's just you set the precedence and it makes it way far more straightforward. Going back to the shoe thing, this is actually something that I don't know if you mentioned already. Just having the kids get accustomed to needing to put their shoes on themselves, because then even if they take them on, if they take them off while they're, because I want to let my kids take their shoes off when we're traveling because it's far more comfortable and you want them to get cozy. But it's on them to find their shoes and put them on, like when it's potty break time, and we give them that heads up. When you see the exit approaching for the rest stop, have the kids get their shoes on, and that just streamlines everything.
Sometimes we'll do it 15 minutes prior. It's hey, we're going to be stopping in a little bit, guys. Everybody get your shoes on. Everyone find your coat. And so they have to do that.
That's right. And then it's nice because then even if, our 2-year-old or our 3-year-old can't find one of their shoes, at least ahead of time. And you're kind of okay. And you're not looking, but then also you're not looking for 8 shoes all at once. The others found their shoes, and you only have to find the one shoe, and it just simplifies things. Same with jackets. Same thing goes with jackets. If it's cold, hey, get your jackets. And then that's something too that it's an expectation thing, and we actually do this more for when we're flying, because we don't fly as often as we road trip, and we will kind of drill different scenarios. And so the kids each have their own carry-on. It's a small carry-on backpack that they have with their snacks and their water bottle, and maybe a game or a book in it. And we practiced with them carrying it, going through security. The kids don't have to take their shoes off, but just like staying in a line and being focused, because our kids, I think this is probably common with many kids, is they're just easily distracted, right? Like especially when they're in a new environment, they're looking at all the bells and whistles around them. Like, this is crazy. And the more they can become, they can know what to expect in different environments, it streamlines everything. And so even when it comes to boarding the aircraft, we like practice that beforehand, and they know when to get in their seat and how to put their carry-on underneath the seat in front of them. And we've done some stuff like that with road tripping as well, just to give them expectations.
Yeah, expectations really help. And then long time frames, like lengthening time frames. So instead of you're pulling up to the rest stop and asking everybody to get ready, you're doing that ahead of time.
Yes.
Or, whatever you can do to prep everybody's expectations ahead of time, the smoother it will be going into the moment. Because the larger your family is and the younger your family is, the harder it is for you to pivot quickly.
Yes.
And we get stressed when we want our families to pivot quickly. And it's like, well, that's just not really baked in the equation at this stage of life.
Yeah.
And so we need to be even more proactive as parents so that we're thinking ahead.
Yeah. And you get this as adults. I think kids, it's really helpful to kids. Like in a church service, they know a rhythm. Like, okay, we sing at the beginning of the service, and then there's some announcements, and then we sing again, and then there's the scripture reading, and then the pastor comes up, and there's kind of this flow to our normal service. And they know at which point in the service they get to get their coloring books out. And they know that towards the end, if they do good, they get a vitamin, or they might get a stick of gum. And the same can go with road trips, and definitely like with flying. You're like, okay, when we get on the plane, it's like there's a difference between getting on the plane than being in the air, right? And so it's like you give them all these different time frames where it's like, well, hey, we're not going to get a snack until we're up in the air, or we're not going to take out our books until we've been on the road for an hour or something. And you give them these different little benchmarks to hit. We like that as adults too. We love benchmarks, and it's the same, only more so with kids. And I think you can just really leverage those benchmarks.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Elisha, because like dripping out the rewards, pacing yourself on that is so good. Like, we don't do anything until we hit Spokane. Mm-hmm. So like, we're out of our neck of the woods
until we're out of Spokane.
Yeah, until we're out of Spokane. Yeah. And then we might do, they might get to take out their book or something that they get to do on their own. But anytime a child will ask for something, like they start to get hungry even, we really like to look forward to things as humans. And so if people want the first snack, then I always leverage that and go, okay, we're going to have the first snack in 20 minutes. So then everyone's engaged looking at their little stopwatches every few minutes for the next 20 minutes. It's like, I just bought myself an activity and got to get the kids a snack.
Yes.
So anytime you can pace things out, like you were saying, that really keeps kids engaged, and you're able to drag out the reward system and not just dump it right away.
Yeah, because like you said, we just love looking forward to things as humans.
Yeah, that's half the fun of something, is the looking forward to it.
Right, yeah.
Another thing Elisha mentioned, the kids having little carry-on bags and snacks in their backpacks, and some of the older kids will carry their own snacks. But for the younger kids, I still ration out all the snacks. And you depending on how much your kids can handle delayed gratification, that might be something that's helpful for you to monitor versus them, so that they don't just eat them all and then beg for a few hours.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on, we just don't do any earbuds in our car. I know Yodo players and are phenomenal for like reading storybooks and stuff like that. And we just... Early on, we decided that car time and car trips and traveling were going to be made, they were going to be times that were for making memories. And yeah, you could read a book, but you're still going to be present with the family, even when you're doing your own thing. You aren't just going to totally zone out into another world. And I remember that was something even when I got my first iPod at 14 years old, like earbuds were not a thing in the car and they just weren't allowed. And I really appreciated that my parents did that.
No doubt.
And so it's something that we're doing with our kids. It's like, if we listen to something, we're doing it together, or at least the kids are doing it in the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so easy to like see how it's not optimal if you picture each kid in their own room with their door shut in their own world during dinner time or during whatever, they're like, well, that's not a very together thing to do. You're all in your own rooms, but then you can basically recreate the same thing and still be in the same room now, right? Like you can all be at the dinner table, but all be in your own world on your own device. Or you can all be in the same vehicle, looking at the same landscape theoretically, but all in your own world because of technology.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to see in a teen that wants to isolate in an unhealthy way or shut everyone out. But what's harder to see is that we've created that expectation through asking children to zone out for years and years and years and years.
Yes.
Be like, go in your own world, zone out, zone
Yes.
out, zone out. And then they're 14, 15, 16. That's what they want to do.
Right.
They don't want to connect with us. And we created that. Like we ruined the times of connection. There's no memory there. And so that's just something that we really want in our family too, is this is a memory building time. And a lot of the time the kids just visit. They either visit with us in the front seat. We're really jammed in our car. We're in a Ford Explorer and we have 7 people in it, right? That's how many it seats.
Yep.
And so we're all jammed pretty close in there. And one day that might not be the case, but they're still able to all visit. And I don't know. I love it so much. I love the little games they come up with. And yeah. And I guess the thing is, the first time you do this, if your children have been accustomed to watching something, it will probably be very, very hard. But when you keep it up, it might only be 1 or 2 trips and then they adopt the new normal. It's like that when we went to being screen free in our home. We went cold turkey and it was like 3 days of the kids asking to watch something all day long. And then it was over. And now we get to experience months and months of our kids not asking to watch anything ever.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And so just know that if this is something that you do want to do with your family, then it's totally possible for your kids to actually love it and for it to be easier for you too. Because you aren't having to entertain your kids.
Right.
They just entertain themselves.
Amen.
That's all I have for you guys. Do you have anything else?
Nope. I've said my share. I've said my piece on this, on the subject.
We will have anything that we mentioned down below if it's helpful for you guys. I know I like to have new ideas.
Oh, me too. Are you kidding me?
Maybe some of these aren't new, but Oh, also one other thing.
Okay, here we go.
One last thing with the water, because you mentioned the potty breaks. And so all the kids do have their own little water bottle. It's how we do. Actually, I got the idea from Megan on an interview I did with Megan Fox Unlocked. And she had the water bottle idea. Each one of her kids have their own water bottle. And this is a great system at home. We store them all in a cupboard down at the kids' level. So we don't have all these water bottles out on the counter, but we also don't have all these cups out on the counter. We don't wash cups because they just each 4 have their water bottle. So that's phenomenal. They bring them in the car, but they aren't allowed to drink their water without asking.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds totally crazy. It's like, can I have a drink of water? But just like if the water were all up with me and I was passing it back, we realized we had to know what kids were drinking water and what kids weren't. Because some kids were just downing their water bottle in the first 5 minutes because they're bored.
Yep.
And then they have to go potty and then they're thirsty. So we're filling back up the water bottle and it's just like this crazy cycle.
Yep. Yeah. You got to regulate the water intake.
Yeah. So everyone needs to stay hydrated, but do so at appropriate intervals. And usually that is like 40 minutes before a potty break. Everyone drink up. We're going to go potty in about 40 minutes.
Nice.
Everyone just guzzle their bottles and you all have full bladders and be ready to go.
Nice. That's the math.
That's it.
Folks, thank you all so much for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.